When it comes to overhead pressing, you know you need to do it, and bodybuilders will very frequently go to a move called the behind the neck press. Here's the real truth about the behind the neck press. It is just not safe, it is just not worth it, and it is just not gonna get you the shoulder gains that you want.
Mobility is a key factor in this movement and the position, but not every variation of any exercise is the most beneficial or optimal for what you're looking to get out of it.
Just because you see an influencer do it doesn't mean it's worth it. It's all about keeping yourself healthy. Let's go over the 3 reasons why you shouldn't do the behind the neck press now. Reason number 1 why you shouldn't do the behind the neck press goes straight back to shoulder health, and nothing about the behind the neck barbell press puts you in a safe position. So when we go overhead in general, in life, in the gym, whatever, we want to work in something called the scapular plane. When we're at this approximate 45-degree angle, suddenly we've got room at the joint that's going to allow us to protect our rotator cuffs and to move freely as we go overhead. As we come out to this more high 5 position, we're opening ourselves up for injury, we're closing down a little bit of joint space, and we're making life a little bit harder on our rotator cuffs. It is never good to train from a position that is hard for our rotator cuffs. We want to keep those healthy for as long as we can, so it's just not worth it.
Not only is this window of injury opening, but it's forcing us into compensation in other parts of the body. We create this extreme neck flexion when we're pushing overhead, and it's going to allow us to get a little bit more range of motion, but yes, we're pressing, but now look at our neck.
Exactly, we talk about neutral spine in general in all of our lifts, so why would we want an exercise that instantly takes us out of that neutral spine? And that's exactly what's happening on the behind the neck press. And when you combine those 2 things and all of a sudden you're loading the exercise, in the first place, you're gonna wind up not loading it that much because we have to worry about our mobility and we have to worry about our neck position. We're just never in a comfortable position to press. The overhead press should be a strong motion. It should be one of your most powerful motions, and all of a sudden you just can't load this exercise. That just doesn't make it worth it. So ditch the behind the neck overhead press and hit these 3 shoulder exercises instead.
The first alternative to the dumbbell behind the neck press would be a dumbbell external rotation. We're gonna be in a similar position where our shoulder blades are pinned back and our elbows are at 90 degrees at the top of the movement, but the difference is when we're pulling our elbow up and back, we're strengthening the rotator cuff in this position versus in the overhead press, we're loading the rotator cuff, and that's just not a strong position to be in for the rotator cuff versus the external rotation where we're focusing on the smaller muscle groups with a lighter load, getting more repetition to build the inner shoulder versus load up the outer.
Exactly, the external rotation, again, this doesn't seem like a press, it's not gonna be a heavy exercise, but if you really wanna live in this position, it is the safest exercise and it's something that's really gonna enhance your shoulders. It's also gonna enhance our next 2 moves. If you really wanna overhead press, let's get away from that behind the neck press, let's get away from the barbell press, period. Let's go to the dumbbell press. It's gonna let you lift nice and comfortably in that scapular plane. We're still gonna be able to load up plenty of weight. That's a great bang for your buck exercise, and that's one of the fundamental ways to train your shoulders.
Third alternative would be a half kneeling single arm overhead press. Now we can get in a, again, better position, similar like the standing overhead press with the dumbbell, but now we can unilaterally load up the shoulder way heavier with a single dumbbell than we would if we had 2 standing up overhead or seated.
Exactly, and all 3 of these are much better alternatives than the behind the neck overhead press. There are a handful of people, a select number of people on this planet who have the mobility and strength combination enough to get something out of the behind the neck press. You do not need to train for it. It is not worth spending too much time on it. So hit those other 3 moves and you'll see a lot more shoulder gain.